Hello and welcome to IYF Podcasts. Today's topic is equality, diversity and young people. I'm Shayne, your host, and we've got a very exciting lineup today. I'm joined by Inverurie Academy Head Teacher Mr. Mark Jones.
Hello.
IYF member Katherine.
Hiya.
And finally IYF member Kyle.
Hello.
First of all, it's a pleasure to have you all on the podcast. This week's podcast is about equality, diversity and young people. June marks the start of a very interesting time in the world. After 3 months, lockdown has been eased. It is LGBTQ plus Pride Month, and we have seen the world take positive steps to end discrimination of all kinds. Though, for our guests, what does diversity and equality mean to them? Mr. Jones, please could you kick us off? What does equality mean to you?
Thanks, Shayne. I hope you can hear me okay. I'm sure, I guess all of us could look up a dictionary definition or Google the word to find out what equality means. But for me, there's two things about equality. First of all, equality is about an action. And secondly, equality is about a feeling. So first of all, equality is about the action of treating people in the same way, irrespective of what you know, what you think you know, or what you don't know about them. But it's also a feeling. So when I was little, people might not know, I used to live in another country in a completely different culture. And I remember the feeling that you get when you know you're being included, when you know you're being treated the same or equally with other people. So I think it's about an action and it's about a feeling.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. A key point to raise up there. It's about an action and feeling. Katherine, what does diversity mean to you?
I think diversity, in my opinion, is the opportunity for everyone to rise. No matter how we interact or how we live our lives, is that everyone is equal and everyone's humans. But importantly, it's also that we can take pride in our differences and celebrate that while being aware that we are all fundamentally the same.
Absolutely, we are all equal and all fantastically brilliant in our own way, and it's important to embrace that and acknowledge that anytime we feel down or anytime we are getting put down. And finally, Kyle, what does equality mean to you?
Well, to me it means that everyone gets treated fairly no matter what their race, gender, sexuality, whatever. But it shouldn't just be you're treating them the same for the sake of it. It should be that you feel like they should be treated the same. You shouldn't think, oh, they're different, we'll treat them differently. You should be thinking that they should be treated the same, not just treating them the same because of doing it.
Exactly, there needs to be a will there when you treat someone equal. It's in the feeling and it's in the passion of respecting each other and treating each other equally. Mr. Jones, as a head teacher, the main focal point of your job is young people. The Academy has many inclusive clubs and groups such as Rights Respecting School Group, LGBTQ plus group, Tapalat and much more. What do you think is the importance of promoting and educating young people about differences, diversity and equality?
Thanks, Shayne. You guys have got some great questions. So I think all of the groups that you've mentioned and many more are so important, each in a slightly different way. But you're right to say that for me, the messages underneath these groups are probably more important than the actual groups themselves. And I would go back to knowing what it's like to feel like you're being treated equally and to know you're being treated equally. I guess all of us on this call and people listening could remember a time when we felt singled out, when we felt teased, when we felt bullied, treated differently, or for some of us even discriminated against. If we all held that memory in the front of our minds rather than forgot about it, and every time we came up against an opportunity not to include other people, then I think we'd live in a very different family, school, town, and also world as well. I guess just to finish off, even more importantly, I guess almost all of us can remember a time, and this is a tough challenge for each of us, when we saw unfairness and didn't do the thing that we should have done. And I think probably all of us can think of a time when we've done this, whether that's turning away, smiling but not laughing, changing the subject, I think the fact that we all have this knowledge of what's right and wrong inside each one of us encourages me that that education bit is really simple. It's about reminding us of what it feels like and then encouraging us to do the right thing in each of the situations that we're going to find ourselves in. So I hope that answers your question, Shayne.
It does so brilliantly, Mr. Jones. Just to raise up some more points that you said there, it's so important that we recognise that the times that we have been imperfect, we recognise the times that we haven't done the things that we wish we could have done in retrospect, and we learn from them and we grow from them. I think it's an opportunity for everyone now, especially in such a high climate, that people recognise people's differences, acknowledge them, listen to them, understand them, and then we cry together, we laugh together, we play together. Kyle and Katherine, you are both IYF members. Kyle, you're a Right Respecting School Group member, and Katherine, until just recently, you were the chair of the Charities Committee, helping charities all over Inverurie and Aberdeenshire, and both take part in many other volunteering roles. What efforts have you seen being made in embracing differences in your roles?
We do at the Youth Forum. We're doing like your events for anti-bullying, mental health, LGBTQ+. It's just to raise awareness that it doesn't matter that people shouldn't be bullying people, but you shouldn't be discriminating people at all, really.
Lucky enough for myself, I've been a member of the Youth Forum since I was in S1, so that was 6 years ago. But I've also taken part in a lot of groups in my time in school. But one of them that was my favourite, just because of the work we did, was the Charities Committee. And through that, I was lucky enough to work with so many different charities, in particular ones that worked on having equality for loads of different people in our community. Two in particular we worked with were charities that offer opportunities and provide assistance for people who have disabilities to work and provide the needs and the means for them to be able to work as equal to everyone else, which I thought was really great.
In the recent weeks, we have seen the world rocked by the passing of George Floyd and the protests and riots that have followed around the world. In all 50 US states and over 13 countries worldwide, making it the biggest civil rights movement in the world. We've seen the best of humanity in the past few weeks, and a world further recognizing the importance of embracing diversity and widening equality. Mr. Jones, we have seen Inverurie Academy make great strides in making sure there is equality for all students in the school. Please can you share with us some of those actions?
Thanks, Shayne. I guess all of us are different, and I'm one of these people who is glass half empty. So that means that I see all of the things that we still need to do, and we need positive, encouraging, and enthusiastic people like yourselves. And I'm the guy that's kind of there to sit in the corner and go, yeah, but we've not got it right yet. And so what I would say is we've not got it right yet at Inverurie Academy. I think it's like a little bit like building a house. We've got some foundations in place and they're pretty strong and it's good and I'm pleased with that, but we've got walls and windows and doors and a roof still to build, and we miss things, and there are probably people who are listening to this, or perhaps some of us on this call, who think, actually, do you know what, although we've made some good strides, Inverurie Academy has still missed things for me, and that's almost certainly true. Just a wee example, Mr. Anderson, who teaches in the school as well, and I went to university at the same time. And we got chummy there, and we had a good friend who we used to play football with and hang out with. And about 2 weeks ago, we've kept in touch with him, and about 2 weeks ago, he started posting on Facebook Live about how he encountered discrimination on a daily basis at university. I had no idea. And Mr. Anderson had no idea. We completely missed it. So we miss things, and we miss things sometimes that are under our noses. So a few things in relation to the foundations that I talked about. First of all, our values. If we practice respect and inclusion and integrity, and if this isn't just a word or a poster, but an action, we're talking about actions and feelings, and it affects the emails I send out, the way I speak to you, the way we speak to each other, the way we stand up for things, then this will continue to change the school. Two other little points. I think this is also about supporting each other. So if we all recognise that, one, we don't get it right all the time, and two, we all need help at some time or another, then we should have people around us to help us. And things like the mentoring for S1s, the S4, 5, 6 mentoring scheme, the counselling that's available in the school, Susie, for our pupil support worker, Tapalat, Right Respecting School, the LGBTQ plus group, all of these groups are hugely important in putting that kind of that arm around the shoulder when people are struggling and giving them the help that they need. Last thing to say, Mr. Anderson right now is in the middle of working with other people on an equalities policy, and that will take into account equalities, diversity, and all of those aspects that will end up with us having a real strategy for building the walls and the door and the roof and all of that kind of thing. And just finally, because I know that you'll let me finish, a word about George Floyd. For me, this is just another example, because there have been lots of George Floyds over the last 50, 100 years, hundreds of years, and it's an example of humans continuing to make terrible mistakes and not learning from the mistakes of the past. And my hope, and I'm sure all of us think the same, that we want this George Floyd to be the last George Floyd, so that we can actually stop going round in circles. Because I do it, and I'm sure you do as well. We go round in circles and don't learn from the past. And my hope is that this is the last George Floyd that we have to talk about. Sorry for taking so long, Shayne.
No, absolutely, Mr. Jones. That's you've hit the nail on the head. I'll read you a tweet that was sent on the Inverurie Academy Right Respecting School Group Twitter page. It says, "If they can learn to hate, they can be taught to love." Nelson Mandela. People are united with the power of kindness, love, and respect for each other. We can't practice discrimination of any kind. Practice the values of Inverurie Academy: ambition, inclusion, integrity, and respect. And I think what Mr. Jones has just said there is hit the nail on the head. We aren't perfect. We do make mistakes. It's acknowledgement of those mistakes and recognition of what we can do better next time. And hopefully there won't be a next time. But the next time will be in 5 years, in 10 years, in 20 years, and how we look at people of minorities, how we look at people who are of a different gender, different religion, all sorts of different categories. In different communities that we need to respect and notice and appreciate as people just like any one of us. It's brilliant what Mr. Jones has said, actually. Katherine, you've done many roles inside and outside school and been a part of countless conversations about the topic of equality and diversity. How has diversity played a part in your growth as a person?
I think it's played a massive part. Not only because it's allowed me to push myself, to educate myself in the history of diversity and equality in the human race, but it's also allowed me to form my own opinions on how I think things should be done in order to achieve those things. I have, through classes and my own personal research, looked into the equality for not only minority groups, but women, and LGBT communities, disabled people, people with learning difficulties, and everything I possibly can. And this has all shaped my view on the world and has allowed me to feel more engaged with politics, the news, and everything I see around me. I've also been able, because of that, to have positive debates with my peers who are less likely to see the lack of equality and diversity in our world.
We have a voice and it's important we use it. That's all I can say about what Katherine said there. Thank you, Katherine. Kyle, do you have any websites, books, or videos for young people listening for them to find out more information about diversity and equality and how they can make a positive change?
I would definitely recommend the Young Scot and Scottish Youth Parliament websites. The Young Scot one is www.youngscotland.org.uk. They talk about your anti-discrimination, your LGBTQ plus, and things like that. The Scottish Youth Parliament is syp.org.uk, and it's talking about the Black Lives Matter movement, the rights that you have as a person or a child.
To all our guests, what advice would you give to young people listening about what they can do to broaden their knowledge and awareness of diversity or equality? Mr. Jones, please could you kick us off?
I think Kyle's given us some great places to go in relation to where we can find out more. It might be expected, and it would be great. And I'm sure in our heads we're thinking, well, we could go to the great speeches and the great people that shaped the world, the kind of people that you see on statues for the right reasons, and so on. And that might be good, but my advice is go out there and find good people. Like Phil, who I went to university along with Mr. Anderson, listen to them, find something inspirational in someone who you live alongside, and then copy the bits that you need to copy, and take inspiration from the bits that you need to copy. So I would say that we can see some inspirational things in people who we rub shoulders with in a socially distanced way at the moment on a day-to-day basis. And there's some examples on this podcast just now. But that would be my advice.
Honestly, I think the best way to do this is to educate yourself. Some of the books you can read are Feminists Wear Pink, or Men Explain Things to Me, or even a fiction book if that's your thing. Some of the great ones that you will know already are To Kill a Mockingbird or The Colour Purple. But also, if reading's not your thing, have a look on Netflix. There's documentaries aplenty, with ones like The 13th or The Death and Life of Marsha P. Johnson really making an impact. All of these and many more will give you a great perspective on the ways equality and diversities are in our world.
Definitely, I would recommend what Mr. Jones and Katherine have said, but you need to find out stuff that's not going to be made up or give you false information. But you need to also help raise awareness about the need for diversity and equality, because we can't have more things happening like has happened to George Floyd and the hundreds of others before him.
Exactly, and just to quote what George Floyd's daughter said, Daddy changed the world, and raise more awareness of the cause, and raise more awareness of anti-discrimination of all kinds. And as we prepare to end off the podcast, let's recap on what we've talked about today. We've heard Mr. Jones talk about the great initiatives available and promoting diversity inside school. We've heard Kyle state the importance of embracing diversity and how he helps in the movement of equality. We've heard Katherine share her knowledge on how embracing differences makes positive growth and what diversity and equality mean to her. And we've had all our guests give advice to all young people listening about what they can do to embrace differences and widen equality for all. Thank you to all our guests for coming on. Mr. Jones, Inverurie Academy Head Teacher, Katherine, IYF Member and former Charities Committee Chair, and finally Kyle, IYF Member and Rights Respecting School Group Member. Thank you for listening to IYF Podcasts. Make sure you subscribe to our podcast on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify and YouTube, and follow us on Instagram and Twitter at Inverurie Youth Forum.